Hello, and welcome to my live stream. This is day 34 of 99 days of Deeper Embodiment. My name is Jason King. So I'm hoping that the audio is well. I'm doing it outside again, and there's a lot of wind today. So if the wind is interfering with the audio, then let me know in the comments, please. I'm just going to take a moment and pause and wait for anyone to join. Okay, wonderful. So looks like there's some people watching now. I'll just begin to start here. I have no idea what wants to be spoken about. However, I can feel that there is a lot rising. There's a lot of ideas here. There's a lot of chunky, jagged perspectives to integrate, which is fun. So I'm going to jump right into that. Again, if the audio isn't so great, then let me know, because I am outside and there's a little bit of wind today on this balcony. So just let me know in the comments. So what I am feeling coming up is, and the whole point of this 99 days of deeper embodiment is to get these jagged perspectives to a place where they can be felt through, to a place where they can be met, to harmonize them and integrate them. And so what I am feeling here now is stuckness around abundance. The idea of being a slave, the idea of the only way to survive, the only way to support oneself, the only way to be supported, the only avenue and pathway to abundance is through a job, which is, in fact, some form of slavery. And so I'm just highlighting that idea now. And you can see that I'm feeling it as well as I'm highlighting it. It's all around the face. It's coming into the heart. This is very dense, very jagged. So what it feels like is really getting crushed as I'm allowing myself to meet this idea. So as I really begin to bring awareness around it, which I'm doing now, and as I'm bringing awareness around it, what I'm allowing myself to do is just become really hyper aware of everything within the body, all the sensations within the body, and all the ideas that are here and present in this moment. Okay. So I'm just sitting, bringing this idea of a job being the only way to touch abundance, the only avenue to survive, the only energetic route to tap into the flow of source, the only way to channel creative energy, the only option that is available that actually brings compensation. And not just compensation, but sufficient amount of compensation to actually live in a way that isn't severely encumbered by poverty. So now, just getting in touch with that idea and allowing myself to feel it, to drop it into the heart. Because this idea is showing up for me. It's a very heavy idea. And so as I touch this idea, what I notice around it is that it is so heavy and so crushing and so difficult for the body to actually process and meet fully that it's not a one-session integration. This is something that may take time. And it's interesting because as I'm getting into the root of this idea, as I'm getting into the core of this idea, what I'm seeing in my reality is that my bank account has dwindled to practically nothing. Debt has skyrocketed, and then on the flip side of that, the only out is a job, doing what I used to do professionally in the corporate world. And so I'm seeing the duality of that. It's like, oh well, you had your adventure, you had your spiritual journey, and now you have to get back to reality. You have to move back into reality the way that reality is accepted by everyone else. And so this is the idea. And the idea has a duality, and the duality of it is, on one side, poverty, on the other side, quote unquote slavery. Whereas in reality, they're two sides of the same coin, because poverty, if you're not slaving, is still slavery, is it not? It's still the same thing. So either you're slaving for something that you don't necessarily align with, or you are in poverty. And yet poverty, because you're not slaving, contingent on slaving, is still slaving. So it's still the same idea. And yet it's interesting as I really begin to see this and get really clear about it and really, really, really allow it to be felt, allow it to be seen, and see how it's moved me, that they're actually, in the beginning of my awakening, I could say, there was a reaction against it. It's like, oh wow, this feels really heavy. It feels heavy to be working in a corporation when I'm integrating all of this trauma that is coming up for me. And I'm feeling through all of these dense ideas and perspectives of who and what I am. And so I can no longer do it. And actually, for me, this happened more than once. It happened actually once, initially when I first drank ayahuasca, and then I moved down to Peru. And that was in 2011. And then it happened a second time after I came back from Peru, after a heart awakening enlightenment. And then part of my integration was I just got thrust right back into the same job that I had prior to leaving for Peru, which is really quite interesting. It's like, oh my God, okay, so I leave Peru, and I leave and I go to Peru, and here I am in a completely different world, completely different reality, where those projections and those ideas are not moving me. And so now, what do I take on there? A different projections, a different role. And what is the role that was given to me there? The role that was given to me there was that of a gringo shaman. Hi, Alex. Nice to see you. So the role that was given to me in Peru was that of a gringo shaman. Right? So here I am recognizing how the roles that are given to me by the collective are moving me. And so when that role of the gringo shaman gets seen through and dropped, which I did see through it and did drop it, it was like, oh wow, yeah, no, I'm not that. That's not me. Because it's a very limiting role. It's a role that limits one to living in the jungle for most of the time, and to bringing more and more people into the jungle. It's an extremely limited reality. I mean, it's a reality where the actual um, lifestyle that is being lived and the ability to access the whole of you is deprecated in a way. Because there's a lot of displacement of power, a lot of saying, okay, well, here I'm going to give all of my power to the shaman and all of my power to these ideas of a shaman and all of my power to these medicinal plants. Now, that took me time to recognize. So there was a journey involved there. It's like, oh, I had to see this. And as I began to see it, what I began to also recognize that there was a lot of integration happening there of ancestral lineages and past lives. But that's not important. It's not really important to get into the specifics of what's being integrated and why, because it's all connected. So it's like if I'm integrating a ton of ancestral past lives, then they're not mine per se, as in like me personally. It's just what's in the field of all of us. It's in the quantum field. So a lot of integration of that. And then as that's being integrated, then I begin to see, oh, well, yeah, this is not actually who and what I am either. And then moving back and forth between two worlds gives a very different perspective from both sides. It was like, okay, well, here I have this perspective of what happens to me when I'm a gringo in Peru. And then another perspective of, oh, well, what happens when I come back to the United States? And then how do all those ideas of how others are perceiving me affect who and what I am and how I'm showing up in the world? What are the ideas? You see, because at a deeper seeing, I'm seeing that, okay, well, the ideas are actually mine. They're actually within my own mind. So anyone that's showing up is just showing me the ideas that are there. So as I'm feeling, because I have a job interview later today and I've been moving with it, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll move with this. I'll let myself move with this, because what is clear to me now is that, yes, there is the option of feeling through all of these things in a cave. And I've done that. Part of my training in Peru was that, actually. It was long, extended times in nature or just by oneself and feeling through everything that's there. And so, yes, that's always an option. And then the other option is to be fully present with what's here in life and move with that. Either way, there's no escaping it, because the ideas were there, they show up. And so the idea that's showing up for me right now is this very jagged idea, which is either you slave for a job or you don't survive, or you are suffering. And it's extremely jagged, very difficult to feel. And so even if I went to the jungle or to a cave or wherever, to the middle of the desert, which I'm in the desert now, and I could pop a tent and just begin to feel through it. And I've been feeling through it in life here. Even if I went with a tent to the desert and was feeling through that idea, it's still incredibly heavy. Very difficult for the body to feel through. So this is one of the things that I feel that we don't really talk about much when we talk about embodiment, or when we talk about spirituality in general, or anything at all related to personal growth, is that largely it has to do with feeling things that we don't want to feel. And so the flip side of that is, if we don't want to feel it, then we're reacting to it always. And so having an embodied ability to see from a guru enlightenment perspective, which is the self, and recognizing that it's all the self, what that really has done for me is just brought lightness to it all. It's like, okay, yeah, I can be with this. I can be with all of it. None of it is separate from me. None of it is different from me. So when ideas are coming up, when they are here, I can see them very clearly and be present with them, no matter how intense they are, no matter how heavy they are, and no matter how they move me. So, yeah, this idea is moving me now. It is moving me because my bank account, I have two bank accounts. One of them has like $180 in it. The other has like $130. So I'm like, whoa, what is going on here? And so then the other side of that is like, okay, yeah, because honestly, like coming back to the United States is very expensive. It's not cheap. It's much cheaper to live in Peru. But aside from that, I wasn't, I was topped off in Peru. There was no income coming in. It's like here we have COVID throughout the planet. And the way that Peru went on lockdown was much more severe than the United States. And it's still very severe there. They're heavily, heavily impacted. And it's going to take them many, many years to recover on a linear timeline. So, multidimensionally, the hope is that we can clear out, all that density within their consciousness so that they can recover and bounce back very quickly to minimize the human suffering. Because human suffering is very real and it affects all of us. So human suffering that's going on in other parts of the planet, not necessarily your country, is still affecting everyone. And what is human suffering? Let's get to the real nitty-gritty of it. Human suffering is being stuck in identifying with a trauma and not being able to meet it fully and process it and clear it out. Period. And when I say stuck, really what this means is that there's just not sufficient awareness around it. Because as soon as there's enough awareness, as soon as there's enough presence, it clears on its own. It's effortless. There's no work around it. And so when we're stuck, identified with a trauma, when we're stuck in a trauma response, that means there's very little embodiment. There's very little presence in the body. There's very little awareness in the body. There's very little ability to meet any of these very strong emotions, these very powerful ideas that we've been empowering. And one of the strongest that we've been empowering is this idea that I'm meeting now. Very, very head on, very clear about it. It's like, yeah, I'm feeling this idea. It's here. And that idea is, if I don't work a job, then I'm in poverty. Whoa, feel that in the heart. Feel that around the body. What are the sensations that come up around that? They're suffocating. They get into the heart and into the lungs, and they actually put so much pressure on the head and so much pressure on the heart and the lungs that they're literally suffocating. And the only solution to that is more and more presence around it. And how do we get more and more presence around it? Honesty. Just talking about it. This is what I'm feeling. And not covering it up with more spiritual ideas, not covering it up with another spiritual ego. Like, oh, well, I'm doing this because, Jesus Christ told me to. Fuck out of here. That's an idea, another idea. Okay, wonderful. Jesus Christ told you to, but you know what? That's still your mind. That is still your mind talking to you. So whether you believe that Jesus Christ told you to or not, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's still the mind. So let's be very clear about that. And so with this clarity, we can see, oh my goodness, how much am I moving from thought? Oh, all movement is from thought, all of it. It's all moving, it's all thought moving. And so it's all belief moving. That's it. That's all there is. Belief making all the movement. Wonderful. So see it. Get really clear about it. So now we can ask ourselves, what is this belief? And what is it doing? What is the duality of the belief? Just like I'm illustrating with this belief of slavery in a job. I'm condemned to be a slave of a job. I'm a job slave. And so this belief here has a duality. What is the duality? Either I work a job and I have money, or I don't work a job and I'm in poverty. That's the duality. And so it doesn't matter which side of the idea I'm on. It's still the same. Don't work a job, go off on spiritual adventures, wonderful. Charge up all my credit cards, use whatever means I have in order to maintain that, wonderful. The idea is still there, and it's still creating a duality. And that duality is, okay, if you don't go back to working a job, then you're going to be poor and broke. And so where does this idea come from? Well, it's at the base of the socially constructed mind. It's very, very embedded. It is super strong in there. So there's a lot of ideas on top of it. So okay, how is the socially constructed mind built? How do we see that? Well, it's built quantumly, multidimensionally, and you can begin to feel it. You can begin to touch it because it has a density about it. It has, as you get more and more aware in your body, as you get more and more in touch with presence within you, then the frequency of presence is very different from the frequency of idea. The frequency of idea comes in and the idea is felt immediately. And as the idea is felt immediately, then that idea has a texture. It has a way of expressing itself within the body. And it can be felt. It has perhaps a taste. It has perhaps a color, even if you're open to imagining and moving within your body with some sort of visual imagination, which can be helpful for some. And so, as we embody and we gain more presence within the body because we've cleared out some of the major traumas, and then more presence comes into the body, then there's more ability to move through the body, feel the ideas, recognize what the ideas are and how they're moving. And then even see, when we're maintaining presence, when we're very, very, very focused, how ideas pull the consciousness one way or the other. It's like, okay, I'm very, very focused, but there's ideas that are pulling my consciousness into different projections of the future or different ideas of the past. And I've spoken about this before in previous sessions. So, feeling this idea of a job slave or a wage slave, how does it pull the mind? Where does it pull consciousness, these ideas? Into imaginations of, if we put the future on this side and the past on this side, into imaginations of possible outcomes, future outcomes. Okay, imagination of being broke and not having any money and having to ask everyone I know for money. Okay, wonderful. That's one. Other imaginations. What is another future projection? Taking a job, working a job, having money, and then the idea comes up, well, you're not going to be happy. Okay, so that pulls into another imagination. Not being happy, working a job. That's a fun one, right? Like, oh, I'm miserable. Then in the past, pulling it into the past is like, okay, well, when I didn't have a job, this happened to me. Or when I had a job, this happened to me. And so that is bringing the future projection into the mind. So because when I had a job previously, I wasn't happy and I was a slave to that job, then there is an idea that comes up. Oh, well, this is what is going to happen if you take a job now. Whoop, and that's a future projection. So here in embodiment is about being with everything as it is and exactly as it is. Recognizing it, feeling it, moving with it. And so as I'm moving with this, what is coming up around taking a job, having a job interview, there is a lightness around it. And so that's why I'm allowing myself to move with it. There's a lightness around it. There's an excitement around it. There is a dissipation of stress. And so that feels good to move with. Going into the middle of the desert and just sitting, I've already done that a lot. And I know that I can dissolve it all through sitting. However, there's not a lot of fun in that, honestly. It's pretty shitty. And then the other one is don't take a job. And if I don't take a job, then what happens? Oh, well, okay, well, then I go and I end up broke. Okay, that doesn't feel good either. So in the interest of moving with this in the way that is the most expedient and the most truthful, so that I can feel through all the ideas and pop through the limiting beliefs, the one that feels the most fun to play with is the idea of the job. And so I have a job interview, which is fun. It's exciting. It's like, okay, let me feel this. Let me be fully present with it. You see? So having the recognition of self, being embodied as the self, recognizing that it's all me, while still allowing myself to move with the ideas as they show up and be fully present with them, this is becoming deeper embodied. So it's like, okay, yeah, I am in the world, but I'm not the world. I am not this body. I am not what is arising in the world. I am not that. I am what is seeing it. And so as the one that is seeing it, I can be fully present with it. And as I'm fully present with it, then I'm meeting all those ideas as they come up. And as I'm meeting all of those ideas as they come up, then there's a lot of shifts that can occur very, very dramatically and very, very rapidly. You see, to get to this point where this idea is coming up for me was a very long journey, because to actually hit this idea, it's not easy because it's at the bottom. It's like, okay, when did this idea come through? Let's see. Came through when I was very young, and being impressed upon by my working family, by my aunts, my uncles, by working class society, through school, through working class members of church, through having experienced poverty as a child, and the only route to not be poor is to work a job, get a job, be responsible. And so it's at the very base, it's a very core idea. And these ideas are not as present in my observation in other countries, in other cultures. Very strong in the United States. In other cultures, I've observed that there's less of a programming around it, so it doesn't come up as strongly. But in my culture and in my genetic lineages, in my ancestry of this body, it's very strong. And so being fully present with it and getting to it is not an easy thing. There's a lot to get to before that actually comes up and can be actually felt through all the way. Now, as we get more tools and as we get more savvy with those tools, that allow us to embody more rapidly, such as containers, such as courses that are designed to bring us directly to these ideas so that they can come up immediately, such as command work. And as the light quotient and the frequency of the collective begins to support us to a degree that these ideas are coming up on their own, because there's more awareness in the body at that point, then on a linear timeline, it's not as arduous. However, in my case, I have already had one bankruptcy, and now I'm looking at another one, potentially, which actually doesn't feel like there needs to be bankruptcy in this case. But it does feel like it's like, okay, well, I have to feel that potential fully and completely. And so here's the fun part of embodiment. It's like, okay, yeah, I have to feel the potential fully and completely of actually being broke and not having any money at all and living on the street. Because it's there. It's an idea that is there. It shows up. And so I can't deny that it's there. I can't pretend that it's not there, because if I'm denying it or pretending that it's not there, then it's moving me. Then I'm reacting to it. Then everything that I'm doing is revolving around it. And then I'm putting ideas in front of it that are pretending that it's not there. And those ideas are more ego, more identity, whether it's a spiritual ego or whether it's something else. It doesn't matter. Any form of excuse to pretend that it's not there. And so the beauty of meeting it now is that I can feel the abundance that I am, and the wholeness and completeness that I am all the time. And so it's much easier to be present with this very, very, very heavy idea of being a wage slave or a job slave or being enslaved at all. It's a heavy perspective. And it's not just my perspective. I'm feeling it within the collective as a whole. So it's coming up within the collective as a whole, and it's coming up very, very strongly. And there's a lot of reaction to it. A lot of reaction to it. So what does reaction to it look like? Not wanting to get a job. Like, no, I'm going to go to the opposite side of that idea. I am going to go to the opposite side of that pendulum, and I'm going to refuse any sort of job. Anything that feels like that, I'm going to run away from it. Still the same idea. It's just the opposite side of it. It's dualistic this way. And so to clear it out fully is to be fully present with it on both sides of it. Let's just stop running. Allow it to be there. If working a job is what's here, working a job is what's here for now. Am I that? Am I restricted by that? Am I limited by that belief? No, because I am presence. I am what is. I am wholeness and completeness all the time. And if I can feel that, then whatever idea is showing up, whatever role the collective is having me play, whatever role is being projected on me, none of those are actually limiting me. I am the silence that is aware of it, that is seeing it. And I'm seeing myself as that silence, as that awareness. And the more I recognize myself as that awareness, then these ideas now have a place to go. They can be dissolved. But if all there ever is reaction to them, one side or the other, then all there is duality at play. And so it doesn't matter which side of the duality we're on. We can literally play both sides of the duality. at the same time, feeling it fully and completely. It's funny because I was speaking to someone last night, my friend, and I said, yeah, there was a time when I was really going into the core, the root of the Christ wound. And as I was going into it, I was able to see that I was not only Christ on the cross, but I was also the thieves that were on both sides. And I was also the Roman soldiers, and I was also the crowd, the mob. And I was also Pontius Pilate, and I was also Jesus' disciples, and I was also Mary Magdalene and the Mother Mary. All of them. I could see from all of those perspectives. I was all of them. None of them were not me. You can't have a Jesus Christ on the cross without an angry mob. It doesn't work. there's no way to do that. And so from oneness, it seemed that it's impossible to have a crucifixion. From unity consciousness, from Christ consciousness, it's impossible to crucify yourself. This is not a possibility. This is not a possibility. It's only possible within a duality, and within a duality, all the perspectives are the same. In the sense that I'm the one who's seeing from all of them. And so dropping in to allow myself to be present with all of them, to feel all of them. To recognize that I'm holding all of them within me. This is yourself. This is seeing yourself as you are, truly. So it'll be fun later on today when I'm in the interview for this job offer to recognize that I am also the interviewer and to feel that as well. And to be fully present with the interviewer. And this is where the quantum leaps happen. This is where there opens the potential for quantum leaps. No longer moving with the idea that there is a separate self. So happy day 34. Thank you so much for tuning in. I love you very much, and I will see you tomorrow.